Hi, I'm Nate,
I'm Dawn.
and we are Our Life by Design. Now, Our Life by Design, as you know, is our Patreon campaign, and we are raising money for the GUR project to bring to burner events and other festivals. So the first thing that we wanted to do was do an LED module to teach everybody about LEDs and pretty much costume design for any kind of big festivals that you might want to do, any kind of cosplay or costuming design, or even performing. We do all of those, and this is going to be what we're going to be teaching. Now, I'm going to be teaching Dawn about LEDs, and I'm going to be teaching you about LEDs, and she's going to be learning about it. I've kind of taught her a little bit about LEDs before, but I haven't taught her everything yet. So we're going to go over everything on the first module. This is going to be going over what you are going to need to buy and what you're going to want to have if you're going to be going forward with your creative arsenal in terms of, let's turn around and say you want to build some LED shoes. We're going to have some projects that we're doing during each one of these modules. One of them is going to be LED shoes. That's probably coming up in Module 2 or Module 3, depending on how far we get. In Module 1, we're going to be creating LED mask. We're going to go over just movement-based LEDs, how we can get them to react. Reactive. We can do sound reactive LEDs. We have those kind of modules. Actually, I have one of those modules right here. We're going to go over the different kinds of modules that you can use, the different kinds of LEDs you can use, and all that kind of stuff. The first project that we're actually going to be going over is basic LED and a 3-volt LED coin cell battery.
Now, where can you get these?
Now, the first thing you need to do is you can go out to Radio Shack or basically your closest, like Fry's Electronics, any kind of electronic store. I will also be including any kind of Amazon links. You can probably get these off of Amazon Prime as well. I know that I've seen
Radio
a bunch
Shack?
of them.
Maybe Best Buy?
Best Buy, probably not. I haven't really seen, and if you go to Best Buy, if you go to any of these places, here's the thing. If you go to Radio Shack, you can probably buy one coin cell at a time. Coin cells look like these. It's about a 3-volt coin cell. Watch batteries, all that kind of stuff. You can find these in Radio Shack. You can find these in Walmart. You can find these in all of the different places that you're going to want to go to buy stuff, but they're going to be expensive. Any of the things that you buy in the stores they're specialty items because they're working with electronics, so it's a little bit more expensive. You usually want to buy this stuff online. But to get started and to just kind of kick it off, I will say, hey, if you want to get this done and you want to go out today and buy this and you're excited to do this stuff, go buy a coin cell battery and a LED light emitting diode, one of these little guys. You can ask, hey, do you guys have any LEDs? Usually LEDs can take about 2.1 volts worth of electricity. Now the coin cell battery pushes out about 3 volts. Now later on in I think the third module, we're going to be going over electricity and batteries and where you need to go and get them and what you're going to need to do. We're either going to go over powering your stuff on Module 2 or Module 3, and we'll be going over LEDs on Module 2 or Module 3. It's it depends on what we do in this one first. Now, when you take an LED, the first thing, this is how I started. You have an LED, it has a long side, which is this side, and you have a short side, which is that side. Now, the long side is usually going to be your positive, short side is going to be your negative. What you need to do is you need to take a battery, and you can take some tape. You can put the LED on the battery, again, positive to positive. Positive is usually going to be the top side of the battery, and the negative is going to be the negative side. Take some electrical tape and tape that together, and there you go. You have an LED that is turned on. Now, what can you do with this?
Ooh, a lot.
You actually can. Now, there's some cool stuff that's been done in the movies. I've seen people actually, I think in one of the Step Up movies, which is one of those dance movies, they took some of these LEDs, they put magnets on them, and then they started tossing them. And these were those interactive or like lighting that you can just be like, oh, hey, I want some lighting behind me on the metal wall. You toss a bunch of these sitting behind you, and boom, there you go. You have some lights. Now, what else can you do with these? Well, say like you have a DJ set or say like you need some lighting for your everyday use. You can literally take this, and it'll look like a Borg or a cyborg. You can stick it on stuff. You can put it on your head. I had my first project that I ever did was using these. I had one coin cell battery, and I wired them into a bracer, and I had 5 LEDs running off of one coin cell battery in my little LED bracer, and it ran around, and it was actually an absolute blast. So I'm going to teach you guys how to wire up some of these LEDs. I'm going to teach you what's going on when it comes to wiring up more than one of these at a time. If you wire up more than one of these at a time, again, this is usually only supposed to be taking about 2.1 volts. Running it at 3 volts, it's making this run a little bit hot. If I were to plug this into a 9-volt battery, this would pop. It would fry the LED. Now, running it at a high voltage is actually not recommended. It'll make the battery or the LED last a lot shorter. It's not going to work all that well over time, but it will run. It'll be a lot brighter though. Now, if I were to put 2 of these on it, you have both of them pulling 1.5 volts a piece, because all of a sudden you have a 3-volt battery pushing out power, and you've got 2 LEDs. So then you're pretty much underneath where the LED needs to be, but it can still be on. If I were to push 3, 4, 5 of these off of one coin cell battery, which I have done, you'll see them dim over time, which is kind of cool. Now, I'll teach you. We'll go back. We're going to get back to this. I'm going to do some cool wiring stuff. That's going to be the extra credit. We're going to go over all the how to wire up an LED, and that's going to be your basic, like, oh, hey, I want one battery on this side, but I want an LED on this side and an LED on this side. We're going to teach you how to wire something like that up, and just kind of use wire in general. But that's later on. First things first, let's go over some of the basics that you're going to need when using any kind of LEDs. Now, what's the first thing that you're going to need when you turn around and you're like, I'm going to work on an LED strip? What do you want?
An LED strip. So probably if you're going to be using wire, you need a soldering iron.
So we have a basic soldering iron. Now, here is your basic soldering iron. This right here is about a 15 to 20 watt soldering iron. When you're using LEDs, especially if you're going to be using an LED strip, you want a soldering iron between 20 and 40 watts. Now, the reason behind that is because these, if they're super hot, you can get soldering irons that go up to 400 watts, and that's if you're going to be soldering like heavy gauge wire, or like large wire, really thick stuff, and you're going to be like connecting them together. Now, if you're doing stuff on little PCB boards or LED like strips, if you were to have something that hot, it would actually melt through the LEDs, and that's not what you want. You want something 20, 25 watts up to 40 watts. Now, this right here, again, 20 watts. You can get it from Radio Shack or online. This is the Radio Shack Pro soldering iron. It's basic and it works. I started off with a really, really bad soldering iron that actually taught me a lot. If you have your dad's old soldering iron around, go grab it and go ahead and try and use it a bunch. Sometimes it's going to work. Most of the time it won't. And you'll learn all the ways that it won't work, which will teach you, when you get a good soldering iron, all the ways that it can work. Now, the cool thing that you need to get with the soldering iron is a soldering station. Now, this is a soldering station. It came with the soldering iron. I know that you'll be able to find something similar to this online. I'll link to it. Again, this locks into your soldering iron. Now, what happens when you solder? This gets hot.
Really hot.
Really, really hot. You need to be in a safe spot. You need to make sure that you're on a sturdy, stable table. Something maybe glass or metal, something that doesn't burn. Not plastic. Plastic melts. Something that doesn't burn or melt. So metal, granite, stone, any of that kind of stuff. That's your good soldering stations. That's what you want to be on. You can even, I've actually taken glass plates and soldered my metal parts on the glass plates, because glass can actually take some heat. Yeah. And ceramic plates. Ceramic plates are fantastic for that. Now, again, soldering iron, soldering station goes in here. What's this stuff down here? This is the stuff that you clean your soldering iron on. So what do you do when you clean your soldering iron? So how do you do that?
Well, when you got some nice gunk up here, you just kind of tap it as so. You can see it in here. So you're cleaning off all that gunk.
So the gunk that she's talking about is the actual solder. Now, solder is this is solder, and what solder is you can get rosin solder or silver bearing solder. And so we'll learn a little bit more about each one of those. Rosin solder I actually don't use. It's designed for stuff that is not moved all that often. It's designed for stuff that's very static, inside computers, something very basic, and it's designed to, it'll break over time if you're using any kind of performance pieces, stuff that's going to be moving around a lot. Your rosin solder is not going to cut it. I use silver bearing solder, and I use very, very fine silver bearing solder. Now, the crazy thing is I've made tons and tons of LED pieces, and I've actually, this is still my first silver bearing solder that I ever got. This is the 6236-2 silver bearing solder. Again, got it from Radio Shack. First one I'm still ever used. I even have an extra one. Still haven't used it yet.
Time to make more.
Yeah, totally. So here, what you would do with your soldering iron, I'll teach you a little bit more about how to solder. I actually am going to link you to a fantastic how to solder tutorial online where they're going to go over this kind of a little bit more in depth. But basically what you do, you've got your solder, you've got your soldering iron, and say like I was going to solder on the top of the microphone, you kind of get them both close together, and if this was plugged in, this is going to be super hot, you're going to be able to melt the silver bearing solder, and it's going to melt onto it. Again, silver bearing solder, higher melting point, so it takes a little bit more heat, which is perfectly okay. You can still use your 20 to 25 watt soldering gun on this, but it also, what the cool stuff is, it is actually a lot stronger. Excuse me. It's a lot stronger than the.
Don't die.
No, weird. Oh, and then super dry throat. Anyway, cut in. So this is your silver bearing solder. Silver bearing solder has a higher heating point, so it's going to be able to take a lot more, like pulling on it. It's going to be able, it's not going to break as well.
Definitely more movement.
A lot more movement. So your wire can move around a little bit more before this pops off. If it pops off, you can actually pull on it a little bit. I wouldn't recommend doing that with any of your creations. I would try and secure them a little bit more, and that we're going to take an entire module on how to just secure your creations. That's going to be securing your creations when it comes to performance, when it comes to design. I go out to Burning Man all the time, and I every year, this is going to be year 8 for me. I'm a performer. I use all of my stuff on a day-to-day basis in some cases. I kick the crap out of it.
Yeah.
So we're going to go over how to secure your LEDs and how to make it so they're strong enough that you probably won't have to use or like fix them every single time you use them. That's the goal, at least. Trust me, once you make things once, you don't want to have to make it again. Now, after you've got those two things, the next thing you need, and like Dawn said earlier, was wire. Wire, you can get different gauge wire. I like the stuff that's a little bit thinner. Thin wire, I'll link you to all that kind of stuff, but the thinner wire is able to move around a little bit more freely. The thicker wire, it's not as bendy. It's going to stay static. It's not going to move around. And if you're going to be moving around a lot, if you have the stuff on joints, you want something that flexes a lot. So there's your wire. There's how that works. And the next thing that you're going to need,
wire cutters.
Wire cutters. So actually, there's two kinds of things that you can use. I use scissors to cut the wires, but these are wire strippers. So scissors, cutting the wire, pretty easy. Use an old pair that can cut through anything. That's usually fantastic. But then you've got your basic wire strippers. Wire strippers like this, basically you find the gauge that you want to strip the wire on. You get it real close to wherever the thing is. I actually have Dawn go over how to do this one. But you get really close to the end of it. You decide how much you want. Sometimes you want a lot showing when it comes to the actual wire, and what you would do with that, if you have a lot of wire showing on one side, a lot of wire showing on a different wire, you can twist those together. That's usually pretty fantastic, and then maybe you'll solder those together after that. Now, the next thing that you're going to want to do is the shorter strip of the wire, and that's going to be if you're going to be soldering onto the LED piece. Again, that'll be if you're soldering onto your LED strip. Now, Dawn's having a little bit of troubles with the basic wire cutter or the wire stripper. That's because she's actually never used it. I didn't teach her how to use it on that one because it's a pain in the butt. It takes forever. You will spend hours and hours. Now, do I recommend learning on that one? Actually, yeah, I do. Yeah. And the reasoning behind that is you're going to learn all of the different ways that wire is going to be a pain in the butt. And you are going to learn about every single way it's going to take to fix any of your kinds of mistakes when it comes to soldering stuff. I kind of recommend using cheaper tools at the beginning when it comes to working on all the LEDs, because you're going to screw up a lot, and that's okay. Learning the different ways of screwing up, it's actually really good to know, because when you're in a situation where you need to fix something, because you've messed up or because you've worked with the stuff that is very basic, is very cheap, then you're going to know all of the different ways to fix any kind of mistake that you have that happens. Now, why has Dawn not learned on those? It's because I taught her on these things. These are a different kind of wire cutters. Basically, it grabs the wire for you, pulls it off, and boom, they're wire stripped. You're good to go.
I did make it work, though. And, I mean, come on.
She did make it work. So here's those. I'm going to have her demonstrate that for you. And yeah, I found those in Home Depot. You can actually grab that in Home Depot. They're about $30 as opposed to $8. I recommend spending that money up front if you don't want to spend a lot of time trying to strip the wires. But that's just, again, over time you're going to be spending money. If you have to spend the money up front, go ahead and do it. If you don't have the money to spend up front, local hardware stores, I would really recommend thrift stores, and I would recommend going into pawn shops. Pawn shops sell a lot of secondhand tools, and they usually have a lot of this stuff for very, very cheap, and usually stuff that you can find in pawn shops is very high quality. Now, the next thing that you're going to want before you work on anything, even before you're usually stripping wires... Safety glasses. Safety glasses are some of the most important things that you can ever use. When you are soldering, it's extremely rare, but you're always going to have fumes. By the way, if you're ever soldering, don't point a fan at your solder. This is something that not that many people know. If you point the fan at the solder in the soldering station, yes, it's blowing the smoke away or the fumes away, but what's actually going on is it's cooling the outside of your solder really, really quickly, but it's keeping the inside kind of brittle. So instead of turning the fan or any kind of fan that you use towards the solder, turn it away, it'll pull the smoke away, it'll pull the fumes away. Random tip. Found that out later on. Now, safety glasses. Occasionally when you're using solder, you hit the solder and it might bubble up and pop. And it might get a little bit too hot, or something might shoot off, or you're working with something and a little piece of a wire shoots out or something like that. Safety glasses. Use them every time.
Protect your eyes.
Protect your eyes. You only have two, and you don't get another pair. I've known people that have worked their entire lives on electronics, and every single one of them, safety goggles, safety goggles, safety goggles. Now, the next thing that we can go into would be, let's do batteries. So your next thing that you're going to need, if you're going to work with any kind of LEDs, you need batteries. Now, earlier we showed you coin cell batteries. These little guys, again,
There's so many.
There's so many ways to power. By the way, there's so many ways to power your creations. You can get basic batteries. You can get your basic 1.2, 1.5 volt AAA battery from Energizer or Duracell or any of those kind of things, and they actually work. You can get the rechargeables. If you wire up enough of them, and again, we're going to go an entire module of how to power your equipment. If you wire up enough of them, you can get the correct voltage to work with LEDs. Now, LEDs usually run off of 5 volts, 12 volts, and everything in between. The little guys run off of 1.2 volts, and every single LED is going to be a little bit different. For LED strips, your main 2 LED strips, 12 volts and 5 volts. If it's digital, it's usually going to be 5. If it's regular, it's going to be, or analog, I call them analog. They might not actually be called that. But your regular LED strips, the ones that I use, are going to be 12 volts. Now, how do you power it? Well, these little coin cell batteries, if you're using these little LEDs, the little coin cell batteries pair up very, very nicely with that kind of stuff. And you can find them, again, you can find the 12 or these little 3 volt guys. You can find them in packs of like 20 or 30 for $6. Now, if you were to go in and buy them individually, they're about $3 or $4 individually at the stores, if not a little bit more than that. So, that being said, grab these online. You buy one 20 or 30 pack, you'll have it for a while, unless you're making tons of cool little stuff, which I hope you are. That way you get on this. Another cool thing that you can power with these guys that we actually haven't done, we haven't done yet, there's these little copper LEDs that are they have little copper strings that go with them, and they are very cheap, but they are really nice. They're very tiny LEDs. They're durable. I use them at Burning Man. She uses them. Again, we'll go over that when we do the LED module. Now, another battery that I like, this is probably my favorite battery, is the 123A batteries. Now, what's a 123A battery? A 123A battery is a 3-volt battery. This one's rechargeable. It's from Tenergy, and this one has, I think it's 700 milliamp hours, MAH, 700 MAH. We'll go over again all that in the battery module, but the cool thing is 4 of these little guys in parallel, that's stacked on top of each other, 4 of these little guys will equal 12 volts, which will power a big LED strip. You'll get your full wattage out of that, and oh, boom, all of a sudden you'll be the brightest one in the room. 9-volt battery can power the LED strips. Going back to it. Now, your little 9-volt battery can usually power these LEDs. Now, what can we do with that? Well, here's a 12-volt LED strip. These little guys can usually, they run off of 12 volts. Now, if I were to run them off of 12 volts, what am I going to need? Well, here's my little battery holder. Usually you can just use 2 wires. This is just kind of like a, oh, hey, let's connect the battery to it. Again, 9 volts. 9 volts are probably what we're going to use a lot when it comes. They're just very versatile. They're easy to use. You can find them everywhere, and you can find rechargeable ones. They're very affordable, and you can find them everywhere.
And then also thinking about wearables and those types of things, the battery's a lot smaller.
They're easy to use.
So you can hide them, right?
Totally. So speaking of which, boom. This is a little 9-volt battery. It's powering this whole mask, and it can actually power it for about 45 minutes. Now, if you're going to be going up on stage, if you're going to be running around at an event or festival or whatnot, having 4 of these in your pocket, you've got a couple hours worth of energy going through this, and it's going to look great. Now, the cool thing is, if you wanted to do 12 volts, again, 4 of those little 123A batteries in parallel, or stacking them on top of each other, you're going to be able to get the full range of power out of that, which is perfectly okay. And you know what? You know what's really crazy? You can take all of those and just tape them together and create your own little battery packs. Now, you can actually, taping them together, not as recommended, but I like doing it because, you know what? Say like one of these little guys goes wrong, say like there's a fault in one of them and starts getting hot. You take it, you unwrap it, you put a new one in, you're good to go. And then the next battery that we have, the ones that you're not going to see too much of, the ones that are a little bit harder to find, a little bit more expensive, all that kind of stuff, an actual 12-volt battery. Now, you can see that this sucker is big and bulky. Thing is, when I take one of these, I'm powering...
It powers you for a while.
Oh, yeah. You've got tons of power. This is a 4,400 milliamp hour. Again, milliamp hours we'll go over. Remember, it said milliamp hours on this. It's about 750 on the little guys. On the 12 volts, you're only going to have about, I don't know, upwards of 400 milliamp hours, maybe less. This, 4,400 milliamp hours. Now, this is an old battery. The milliamp hours that you're looking at in today's batteries, the newer stuff, the 12 volts, you're looking at about 10,000. Yeah. So whereas you've got 44,000 on on this guy, you've got 10,000 on something that's about this size. And say like, hey, you want to power your whole suit? You got a 10,000 milliamp hour battery, or 20,000 in some cases. Putting it on your chest, putting it in your suit, putting it in a backpack. Yeah. You've got power for the entire night in some cases. So, you know what it's neat about these guys? It doubles as a USB charger. So if you need your phones, all that kind of stuff, you're going to be, the cool stuff is, all this stuff you learn about, and over time you're going to be like, oh, I can just charge whatever I need in the process. Now, next things that you guys are going to need after batteries, actually I'm going to hand these all over to you. The next thing that you're probably going to need, I can't recommend it enough, glue guns. Glue guns. And glue, and all of the crazy stuff that you can need in the world. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to crafting, get a glue gun. I mean, go to Hobby Lobby. Probably don't go to Hobby Lobby. They're a bad company. Michael's is an okay company. Hobby Lobby's okay if you need to go to it. It has some unique stuff there. It's a pain in the butt that they kind of morally are off. Politics. I shouldn't be talking about that. Skip that part. Anyway. Glue guns. Glue guns are good. Go grab one. Go grab them from your local store, crafting store. You're going to be able to find them at Safeway. Head over, check it out, find it. They'll be there. Where do you get wire? Where do you get all this stuff? Again, I'm going to be sending you all the links if you have a local electronics store. If you have a Fry's, you're lucky, go to Fry's. Fry's has everything, and it might actually have it for decent prices. Radio Shack, a little bit more expensive, a little bit more individualistic and detailed. They're going to be looking for little items. They'll have it, but again, a little bit more expensive if you go through the Radio Shack stuff. The next thing after that you're going to be able to find, that I'm just going to shoot out there, is boning. But we don't need to go over boning right now. Boning is something that you can use. It's for corsets. And the cool thing is it makes as great backing for LED strips. Again, we'll go over, that's going to be in your securing stuff module. If you look into boning right now, just look it up online, BONING for corsets. You'll be able to, I'll send you all the links on all that later on. Heat guns. Now, I know there's a heat gun right over there. Don wants to grab it and show it off. Heat guns. Why are you going to need a heat gun?
Heat things up.
You're going to need to heat things up. There is shrink wrap tubing that you can actually get. So say like you solder stuff, but you don't want to tape it off with your electrical tape, which we haven't talked about yet, but you're going to need we'll go over that. Electrical tape, we'll go over in a second. Heat shrink tubing. So say like you want to protect or waterproof some of your equipment. Again, heat shrink tubing isn't going to fully waterproof it, but it'll make it it'll do pretty good. Now, heat shrink tubing, what you can do is you slide it over whatever you need to heat shrink. You hit it with the heat gun, boom, all of a sudden it is sealed. It is good. It's good to go. Next thing you're going to need, this is your essentials. This I should have brought back over at the beginning. How the hell are you going to make all this stuff and tape it together?
Tape.
Electrical tape. I know I kind of used it a little bit when we were using coin cell battery. Electrical tape is probably one of the greatest things you could ever have in your arsenal. There's two different kinds of electric tape. I bet you didn't know that. There's professional grade electric tape, which is this stuff, and then there's the regular stuff. The regular stuff does not, it doesn't have the elasticity that this stuff has. This stuff you're going to be able to pull on for days, and you're going to be able to really wrap something, and it's going to really hold on, as opposed to the regular stuff. It's really tight. It's not going to be able to, it's not going to be as elastic. You can't wrap stuff as well.
And it comes in multiple colors, too.
Yeah, actually, the professional stuff does come in like tons of colors. Home Depot is where you're going to be able to grab stuff, and just look for the professional line. I think this is done. This one's done by Scotch. So regular Scotch tape. The next thing you're going to want to go off of is like buttons and on-off switches. This is when we get into the detailed little electronics, and if you get into the little LED switch, boom, boom, you have an on and off button.
Yep.
This stuff is really cool if you're just like, okay, you want to walk out, you get in front of everybody, or you don't want to, you're running around there in the daytime, nighttime hits, flick the button, boom, everything turns on. We'll get into that stuff way later. Next thing after that, you're going to want a drill. You're going to want all of the regular basic stuff that you can find in a hardware store. That stuff that you might want later on just for costuming in general. It's not necessary for the stuff that we're building right now, but never hurts to have. This is stuff that you should get over time, by the way. Other things you're going to want to get, you always need an X-Acto knife. You always need some sort of cutting tools. Again, scissors are my favorite tool out of all of this, but the X-Acto knife comes in a lot of handy a lot of times. I use it to cut all of the LED strips in a lot of cases. Next thing we'll go over eventually, and this is going to go down to the powering, and we're going to be teaching you about the powering stuff. Resistors. Now, what happens with a resistor? Do I use resistors? Mostly no, because I'm pulling the resistors. Say like, let's go off of this. This is a 3-volt battery. This takes 1.2 volts. Say like I want to protect this and make it so we're not pushing too much voltage into this. Well, what am I going to do? I would take a resistor, and you have tons of different kinds of resistors in the world. I would take it, add it onto the LED, boom. All of a sudden you have the protected LED. It's only going to be pulling the correct amount of voltage. Your battery is going to last longer. The voltage is going to be good, and everything's fine. So resistors actually create the resistance in the flow of electricity. Later on, we'll go over circuits, what this is. This is an open circuit. Then when you put the battery and the LED together, it's a closed circuit, all that kind of stuff. We'll go over some basic electricity. When you're working with resistors, you're working in the Ohm's law, that stuff. That's a lot of more in-depth electronics work than I really want to kind of go over in this module. I kind of want to teach you more about the LEDs and just costuming, because a lot of this stuff will go, once you get into this, you can get into all the different controllers, microcontrollers, all that kind of stuff. That's not what we're here for. That's not what we want to do on the day-to-day. We really want to teach you guys how to get down, get dirty, put your costume pieces together and get out there.
And make it work.
That being said, when you're working with the electricity, be careful. Try not to zap yourself. This stuff can hurt you.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing. Stuff can get hot. Be careful. Be careful. Be careful. Be careful. Don't breathe the fumes in when you're working with soldering iron. Wear safety goggles. Don't burn yourself. Don't electrocute yourself. Are you going to get super electrocuted off of 9 volts? No, but hey, if you have a heart condition, don't screw around. Like, try and protect yourself. Wear like rubber gloves if you need to. Now, the next thing that you might want in your arsenal, regular little multi-tool. You can find these guys at any kind of electronics store, any kind of camping store. This one, I think I got my dad might have got this for me for like $8 somewhere. It's a tiny little one. It's perfect for working with these small electronics. Love this guy to death. Glue. Glue's your next big thing. Super glue, hot glue, Gorilla Glue, you name it. What, E6000?
E6000, my favorite.
E6000 is perfect. She turned me on to E6000. It's interesting. It has a high rating when it comes to heat. It can take a lot of the heat out in the desert, any of these shows. E6000 is pretty damn good. Again, I'm all about the Gorilla Glue stuff. You work with that, it's not coming off in any way, shape, or form. Let's see. All right, let's do so that's it for the basics. I can go over. I'll go over more basics in a later time. I'll send in some links that you guys can get to. I'm going to include links for your LEDs. I'm going to include links to the LED strips. I do suggest that you get an LED strip. And so you saw the mask that I made earlier. Well, here's the cool thing, and this is one of the things that we're going to want to make. I don't know if we're going to make this next time. It's possible. I kind of want to make LED glasses just using your basic LEDs because I know everybody's going to have this by next time. Hopefully go grab the one that I send you online. It's on Prime. It should come pretty quickly. But LED,
and they come in multiple colors.
They come in tons of multiple colors.
Yeah.
They come in UV lighting. So if you ever wanted to do some UV paint, by the way, protect your eyes if you're doing any kind of UV lighting, because that stuff will hurt your eyes over time. But if you want to do UV paint, put LEDs into the costume, shine it up at you, you will glow, which is a kind of a neat trick that I've seen done. I've seen people put UV lighting in their hats and then UV paint on their face, and then when they're walking around, they look crazy awesome. Now, what do we want to build in the future? Well, some of the stuff that we're going to build in the future, we're going to go over that mask stuff, which is going to be kind of cool. But I want you guys, we're going to teach you how to build your own LED shoes. Now, these are your LED shoes. They're not the ones that are going to break that you see everybody else wearing all the time. And these change colors.
And you can put them on any shoe.
You can put them on any shoe. And here's the other cool thing. There's 2 different kinds that I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you guys how to do a basic LED shoe where you just pop on the battery and you have your little... Oh, I didn't even talk about controllers. LED controllers. We have different kinds of LED controllers. This is an LED controller. This is an LED controller. Again, we'll be going over all of that when we go over the LED modules, different kinds of LEDs, and what you can do with them. But this is your basic LED controller. There's your LEDs. Now, we can do movement-based LEDs, and I'll teach you how to do that. If you guys want to go out and get some BBs, some copper BBs, from any kind of sporting goods store, Big 5 is where I got mine back in the day, and a pen cap, I can teach you how to you take 3 little holes, you drill it into the pen cap, you take your red, your green, your blue, and your black, or in your 12-volt power cord, and you stick it all over inside of the pen cap, and you put all of the copper in, you tie it to you put it to your shoe, tape it to your shoe, and then you move around. And when those little copper balls are moving around, they start hitting all those different things. Boom, you have different colors happening.
So sound reactive.
It's movement reactive.
Movement reactive.
Yeah, sound reactive is actually this module. So this little guy, you can do sound reactive LEDs with this guy, which is a lot of fun when you have a mask and you get your little robot to start talking. Let's see. Okay, so your extra credit that we will have for this kind of module, the only thing that we're going to be going over, let's talk about wiring. So this is your extra credit. We've kind of gone over everything. I've kind of given you the basics of what you can do and how things work.
And now wiring comes in a multitude of different varieties. Black. You can get
Black,
the ones
red, yellow, orange, green. I have multi LEDs, so when I'm working with an LED strip, like this thing right here, you can see all the different colored wires coming through all of that. You can find wires online, LED wires that come already color-coded and ready to go for an entire LED strip. They're LED strip wires. Now, the cool thing that we're going to do, I want to teach Don, I'm going to hand on this, I'm going to hand on a battery, and I'm going to get some tape ready for her. I want her to take the battery and wire the LED to the battery. Now remember, the long side of the LED is positive. The short side of the LED is negative. So if you had a 3-volt LED or a 3-volt battery, roommates in the background. All right, if we had a 3-volt LED, what we're going to do, again, top, the wire's already on top. We're good to go. It's touching the positive. Positive, that's where our positive is going to go. I'm just going to take that wire and really push down hard, and boom, there we go. The wire's on the top. Now, if I wanted to, we can also take the same piece of tape. It's long enough that we can also do our negative. So, boom, that was the positive, and here's the negative. Positive and negative are now wired together. Now, if we wanted to take the LED, here we go. I'm going to hold the LED. Of course. So, I'm going to hold the LED, and Dawn is actually going to use the wires. Remember, positive on top, negative on bottom. We're going to take it, and what do we do? Oh, of course. There we go. See that? It just wired together. Now, what does that look like? That's your positive, negative, and wired together. Boom and boom. So here's the crazy thing. Now, if you were to take this, wire it all together, and actually twist this sucker to make those LEDs, the wires connected, boom, you've got the wires connected to the LED. It's holding the LED on. We could actually have this just hanging and have the LED working there. Well, what if you took one battery, you took one LED, you put the positive to the positive, the negative to the negative, you take another LED, and you can take the other LED and run 2 more wires off that same battery, and boom, you have a LED on the bottom. Now, this is what we're going to do next week with the glasses. You're going to have a pair of glasses, you're going to have one battery, and we're going to take a couple LEDs and put them all over the glasses, and we're going to run the LEDs off of that. So that's where we're going to go with this in the future. So if you guys have any questions for me, go ahead and shoot me any messages. Again, donate to our Patreon account. Or get your friends on board. Go-go dancers, performers, anybody that would be interested, cosplayers.
Anybody that wants to light up.
Anybody that wants to light up. Anybody that wants to run around and have some fun.
Anyone and everyone.
We're going to be teaching all of this over time. We really want to teach people a lot. I'm hoping to release a video probably every 2 weeks is the goal. Maybe every week if we can, but 2 weeks is going to be the most reasonable anything thing that you can to get the word out there, because we're really trying to grow this. We're trying to get it big, and the cool stuff is some of our bigger projects like the GUR project. If you have any questions on the GUR project, I'll send you an awesome link. If you have any questions about any of that, go ahead and shoot us any of that, and we're making something really cool. The goal of the GUR project is actually to do sound reactive projection mapping, and an LED sculpture. It's going to be an LED sound reactive LED sculpture as well, and sound reactive fire speakers, all this other fun, crazy stuff that we're going to be building. 8-foot tall by 16-foot long steel sculpture of a dragon head, and maybe a 16-foot tall by 30-foot long. We're going to try and travel around the world with this. We're going to try and travel to festivals, and that's the big goal for the GUR project. Other projects that we have going on that you might want to know about, go for it.
So we have one which is Black on Black Couture. It's one of our brands. We're developing leather battle hoods that are actually lined with real fur or faux fur. They're great for festivals. I have a few. He's had one for a few years and just kicked the crap out of it. And they are durable. They're awesome. They are very stylish and chic.
Endless Reflection is the last, or is the other project that we're working on. We want to take a lot of the stuff that we're building with that we're creating, all the costumes and whatnot, and we're going to be creating
a collective.
We're building a total collective. We're going to be building tons of. So basically, we're taking all the stuff that we're making. We're going to be doing projects. We're going to be doing art. We're going to be doing interactive designs. We're going to be throwing shows. I just bought tons of sound. We're going to be doing
lots and lots of sound.
Oh God, we have so many speakers right now. But basically, we're going to be doing large shows. We want to be doing large nightlife events. We want to be doing very creative spaces that a lot of people will be involved in. And we want you to be involved with this. Of course, we want you to be involved with this. We want to see people. We want to bring everybody together and see what we can do. I want people running around at festivals going, "Hey, you guys taught us this, and check out what we made, and it's going to be better than anything that I've ever made." This is how this works. You guys are going to be like, you're going to take some of this stuff and be crazy creative with it. I'm excited about that. Again, Our Life by Design, the GUR project. Thank you so much for watching. We'll have another video for you in 2 weeks. I will have all the supplemental materials for you once you sign up, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks.